Jade, and today I'm going to talk to you about self-care during OCD recovery, and in fact on the other side of OCD recovery, which is where I am now. So I suffered for nearly 2 decades with extreme severe OCD, and I share a lot of content on this channel about my journey to recovery, so feel free to ask any questions in the comments box below that you'd like to ask me, and I will cover them in future videos. Self-care is something that can be really tricky to know what to do whilst you're recovering, because I think we're always aware that we don't want to become compulsive with anything that we're doing. And actually a lot of the advice on the internet, like if you just do a quick Google on self-care for OCD sufferers, which I just did, and there's some obviously great content out there, but there's also some content that if you're not careful, you can end up almost strengthening OCD's grips. I'm going to share a few examples of things that are going to be really good for you for your self-care whilst you're recovering from OCD. And I'm going to share some things to look out for that you may be doing that may be hindering your progress, and hopefully give you some answers. But you won't be getting certainty, because that doesn't exist. So I've written a few notes. So I think the first thing to say is that if you have a brain like mine, which functions as what you could call a brain with OCD, even though it doesn't rule my life anymore, it doesn't drive my behavior, it doesn't affect me other than cropping up from time to time, I have noticed that my brain typically wants certainty. It's kind of geared towards that place. So where other people might be super chilled, super relaxed and carefree, that's not typically my brain type. So I have to be conscious of making sure that I'm not needing answers. And I'm going to give you some really good examples. One of the things that I was told during OCD recovery was like the role of caffeine, for example. So it's best to cut caffeine because caffeine doesn't do too good for anxiety and OCD. It could make your symptoms worse. To my brain, that was never touch caffeine again. There's a big difference between 18 cups of coffee a day and being just like jacked up all day on coffee, and having a coffee when you feel like you could do with a pick-me-up. So for example, every single morning I don't feel too great till I've had my coffee, and then later on in the day, if I'm feeling like I could do with another one, I'll have another one. But even though I'm recovered, every now and then I will have a coffee as an exposure to show to myself that there's nothing to fear about having another coffee, because we want that certainty. And I did it when I was pregnant too. It was like, we recommend that you don't have more than 1 cup of coffee a day. So I had none. With my second pregnancy, I decided I'm not doing that. Sometimes I'd have 2, and yeah, a doctor would say to me, hey, don't have 2 a day. It's like, well, it's that rigidity of needing to know, okay, what happens if I have 2 coffees once when I'm pregnant, when it says 1 a day, and having that flexibility and rigidity. I'm not suggesting going against medical advice. It's just a good example of not needing to be absolutely certain on something, because all you're doing is feeding this OCD need for control of your life, need for certainty. Another one was that when I was really suffering with OCD and I was in recovery working with the team at OCD Recovery of this channel, I decided not to have alcohol for a little while, just because I was doing an intensive exposure program. And it wasn't a good idea at that point for me to be getting drunk and then having hangovers, and it just wasn't the time. But I was going to go to a concert with my friends and I was excited. And I said to Rob, who runs this channel, what if I have a bit of wine? How would that? And he said something really relaxed, look, 1 or 2 glasses, just enjoy yourself. Just, it's good to have fun with your friends. But my brain that night, then I had 1 glass of wine and I was like, 1 or 2 glasses, and I kind of froze and I was like, I don't know what to do here. And I was desperate to send a message to get confirmation, but obviously that's a massive compulsion. And so I think it's just something to be aware of when it comes to self-care, is making sure it doesn't become obsessive. The other thing to look out for is recognizing when you're using self-care to make the OCD feel better, which can actually create another form of compulsion. For example, mindfulness is absolutely phenomenal for anyone in the world, really, in my opinion. becoming more mindful, living in the moment, being present, not rushing around from one thing to another. People might disagree with this. It's just my thought is that we're human beings, not human doings. So surely becoming more mindfully present in life is going to strengthen our relationships with people. It's going to help us to be more in the moment rather than living in the future or the past. So in a general sense, mindfulness is brilliant. And I'm sure that it would create a component part of being a less anxious person. I know that when I'm overstimulated, rushing around, OCD has a better environment to blossom in. But I'm also very aware that I can get scared of being overwhelmed, and then it becomes a bit of an OCD fear in itself. And so then again, OCD's controlling me because I'm measuring what stress level am I at? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Should I not do a task for a minute? Maybe I need to sit down for 30 minutes and watch TV and just reset and just relax and self-care, self-care, self-care. But that is born from a fear of overwhelm. And this is definitely something that when I did this Google, and you have a look, and please tell me if you find anything that does mention it, I didn't find anywhere that said, be careful not to be compulsive with this and be careful not to be trying to push the anxiety away. Because I find, so a lot of people that I meet in all walks of life who suffer with anxiety, because there's millions of people in the world, billions probably, not OCD, but anxiety, they tell me all the things they're trying. They're like, oh, well, I've been doing this deep breathing. I've been doing the cold, like the Wim Hof method. I've been doing this, I've been doing that, I've been doing that. And it's amazing. You've got to do it. It's the answer. It cures your anxiety. But then after a while, it wears off and then they're on to the next thing, then they're on to the next thing. The problem is they're not using it to improve their life in a general sense so that it contributes to OCD recovery and sustaining that. They're actually using it to push it away because they desperately don't want it. And the problem with that is, from what I've learned and my experience with it, and it's well documented too, is that the more you don't want anxiety there, the more it has its conditions to grow. It's like if it knows you're desperate, because it's your own brain, it's not like it doesn't know everything you know because it's you. So the more it knows, the more you know you want it gone and you're scared of it, the more it's going to be a big part of you, if that makes sense. So I would really urge you to read Paul David's At Last a Life. That explains this so well. And honestly, like just from having friends with anxiety and giving them that book, so many of them were like, the anxiety's gone, because now it would never work for me on its own because my OCD was so severe that there was a lot of like things to work through and exposure therapy and facing my fears and things like that. But for a lot of people, it was quite simply that they didn't like the feeling of anxiety naturally. They wanted it gone naturally, and they were pushing it away desperately. I don't want you, I don't want you, don't want you. The Paul David At Last a Life book talks about I think he calls it the emotional backpack or just the anxiety backpack. And it's this weight you're carrying around with everything that you're trying to really get rid of anxiety. And self-care can often end up in there. So if you find yourself, as I've done this in the past, right, my anxiety is really bad. Okay, I need to go to a yoga class today. I need to do my deep breathing every day. I need to do my mindfulness meditation every other day. I need to be going for walks every day. It's like, fine, if this is the life structure that you're aiming for the vision for your life. But if you're doing these things to stop anxious feelings, I ended up in a situation where they actually stopped working and it wasn't sustainable either. And it wasn't really a life, when you're that rigid in what has to be done in order to uphold something, are you really living? Because you're putting off other things that you could be doing. For example, I run my own small business and I really enjoy it. And quite often when I'm feeling overwhelmed in general life, I'm really tempted to put my business on the back burner because I've got this subconscious thing of if you get overwhelmed, your OCD will come back and you'll get unwell again. And, you really want to avoid that. So just rest, don't push yourself. But I think there's a balance to be had. So I've been speaking to some of the guys at OCD Recovery about this. I think there's a balance. And again, there's never going to be certainty. But for me, the balance is I don't want a chaotic life. me and Nick on this channel were talking, he is like 100 miles an hour. He's an awesome guy and he wants that life. Like, that is how he operates. I want the kind of mindful experience of life where I'm just sort of present in every, I'm not saying he's not present every moment, but it's not what I want. I want to be doing less tasks and just kind of being a bit more. Just the season of life I'm in. So neither of us are wrong. We're just in different places and we want different things. And I had to recognize that it doesn't have to be black and white, because I could sometimes be like, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. I need to quit my business. I need to just be a parent for a few years and I need to quit my company. And that's just crazy because it's going well. And so it's kind of like learning that it's okay. It is okay to push myself. I'm not weak. I'm not broken. If there's a few weeks every now and then where I'm like, do you know what? I want to get this project over the line in my business, and I am going to be having a bit more coffee than usual, and I'm going to be working a bit later, I'm going to feel tired. That's something I should face because I'm not weak and I'm not broken. But from a self-care in life point of view, it's good for me to get a life structure where that doesn't become the norm, because it's not, in general terms, considered to be a healthy way to be. So I think we need to have general guidelines around what we consider to be self-care, so that we're looking after ourselves in a general sense, but not becoming obsessive about it. Now, some of the other things that came up when I was researching this was like, food and mood. And this is on articles like about OCD, like getting better from OCD. So like, it's the type of stuff I would have read before I'd kind of got involved with OCD recovery and learn about this, had a deeper understanding of how anxiety operates, that gave me answers to why I wasn't getting better. So I was getting like 80% better with all of the advice available that I had found on the internet and people I'd spoken to. And that was great. Everything was brilliant. But the last sort of 20% where I was like, this isn't adding up to me, it kind of was answered. So like this whole food and mood, when you eat well, you feel well. It's like, yeah, but to a person with OCD, like I went down the rabbit hole of like making sure that I was getting every single supplement possible, making sure that I was checking ingredients so that I wasn't having anything that was processed, because I'd read that processed food wasn't good for OCD. I was like becoming so obsessive about it, when being that obsessive was probably more harmful to my recovery than the benefit of the good diet. And I also think it's really tricky because when you get into a bad place and you don't necessarily have the energy to be that regimented, and then you kind of slip into worse habits because you're like, oh, well, I've given up now anyway, so I'm going to have Domino's pizza all week because I'm just so depressed that I'm just going to order food in, rather than it just being balanced, like it's okay to eat whatever and just generally aim for a healthier diet. And then things like deep breathing is something to be really careful of. So I think that if we can use, things like mindfulness and deep breathing and yoga and meditation as like a general life practice, not in the moment when we're triggered. So if you're like waking up on a Tuesday and you're like, oh, this is a bad day for me. Okay, I'm going to do a yoga class today and I'm going to do some deep breathing later. I'm going to do mindfulness. You are doing it to push it away. But if you decide I'm taking a Thursday evening yoga class because it's going to be good for my body and my mind in general terms, and I'm just going to go every Thursday, whether I feel great or terrible, and I'm not going to connect the two, that's going to be a really great way to have these self-care things in your life without them being a tool that you're trying to push it away. And so the other ones, just on those topics, and then I'm going to get into some cool stuff about like life passion and like celebrating yourself, just to end on a high. There were also things suggested like, looking into alternative therapies like herbal remedies and things like acupuncture will come up, and hypnosis and all different things. And I'm not going to comment on any of those because I haven't done any of those. But again, trying to be careful, because it's when you're going down these routes, you're trying to find this magic fix that won't really exist for most people. And like I said, I've got friends with anxiety, actual anxiety, who read the Paul David At Last Alive book and are better and have moved on, because they were just feeling anxiety. It wasn't anxious, it was anxiety, but it was enough for them. But when you've got severe OCD like I have or had, I think it's just easier for us to fall into these rabbit holes. And we need a little bit more. So you want to be really careful with like desperately trying different things. I know why we do it, because we always feel like this one's going to work, this one's going to work. If I just do this, I'm going to be better. But actually, there isn't really a magic answer to recovery from OCD. Now, if you scroll through this channel, you'll see a few videos from me on like my recovery plans. If you want to like watch that on like, because I'm not going to go into that now, like the detail on how to actually get better. But I've been reading a really interesting book that ties in nicely with this concept. It's not on the reading list, it's just something I've been really enjoying. It's called Atomic Habits. And again, if you decide you want to read it, like I'm reading it and I think it's awesome, just like not to get better from OCD, just because it's a really good book. If you're going to read it, make sure that you, again, don't become like listing habits and then getting really seriously like compulsive with it. Because I used to avoid stuff like this, like, you know, looking at goals for my life and habits and stuff, because I thought I can't do that, otherwise I get obsessive. But I'm using it as a learning experience for myself to do it, but not be obsessive about it, just to enjoy learning about some subtle changes to my life. Now, the reason I thought that talking about this Atomic Habits book would be good for you is because I think this is how self-care works for OCD. There's no one thing that's going to fix you. But Atomic Habits talks about this idea of like 1% marginal gains across all areas of your life. So like sports people, athletes, like the British cycling team, when they started to become more successful under a new coach in the early 2000s, they did like things that seemed stupid and crazy, like they had the seats changed so they'd be more comfortable for them to sit on. They had like different things, like I think they had shorts that warmed up so that their muscles would be more looked after during the competing. And they had all different tiny, tiny, tiny things that all added up. Now, obviously, a lot of things have come to light about all of that since then. But the point is the same. Like the coach applied this 1% tiny marginal gains. And so I was just going to read you a couple of sentences. It says, why small habits make a big difference. It's so easy to overestimate the importance of one defining moment and underestimate the value of making small improvements on a daily basis. So again, it's like we're trying to find that one defining moment, that one thing that's going to make us better, which doesn't exist. It's more about the small things we do every day that combine. Too often we convince ourselves that massive success requires massive action, whether it's losing weight, building a business, writing a book, or achieving any other goal. We put pressure on ourselves to make earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. Meanwhile, improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. The difference a tiny improvement can make over time is astounding. Here's how the math works. If you can get 1% better each day for a year, you'll end up 37 times better than you've done. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day, you'll decline nearly zero, whatever. Like, don't worry about that stuff. But I think the point is that think of self-care as your 1% gains. Like in an ideal world, we'll eat fresh vegetables and fruit and drink plenty of water, but it's only a small amount. So like, it's a nice habit to have. We're not going to worry about it. It's not the 100%, like it feels like 100%. And so if we, like with me at the moment, my self-care has slipped because I've been so busy. But if I could bring in some more 1%, like going for a walk every day, eating a little bit healthier, drinking enough water, yes, doing a bit of mindfulness and yoga throughout the week, you know, these small things that will contribute to my overall well-being rather than obsessively needing them to. And there was something else in here as well. That's it. It was talking about the idea of moving away from goals, which I really liked, because when your goal is to get better from OCD, you become obsessed with it. It says, forget about goals, focus on systems instead. So the idea is, say I run 10 miles, 5 miles every other day for 6 months. It's quite likely that I'm going to be pretty fast at running 5 miles as long as I train in between and things like that. If I don't run 5 miles every other day, if I only run it every 3 weeks, I'm less likely to be fast at running. So rather than me saying, okay, my goal is I'm going to run a half marathon in this time, I focus on the system instead. So it's like, I'm going to put in place these practices that are more likely to lead to a really good output. And I think like this is not scientific, no one else is talking about this, but this is just this is what I'm taking from this book, is that focusing on the systems in your life rather than the goals, I think is a really good way to do it. Like if you're an entrepreneur, your goal might be to build $1 million business, but your system is how you test product ideas, hire people, and run marketing campaigns. Like, for an interesting question here, if you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? And I think that is so good to think about this in OCD recovery, because then you're not focused on time. You're not like, I've got to be better by this time. It's just like, look, I'm going to do loads of exposures. I'm going to dispute my irrational beliefs, and that's something I talk about in other videos. I'm going to have a decent self-care approach to life with good structure, and I'm going to not do compulsions and whatever it is. Like, focus on your systems for life, and then recovery will come and you won't be as obsessed with it as a goal. I think that's a nice way to look at it. So just to finish off, I wanted to talk about another thing that I consider to be self-care, which is why I have a strange relationship with my business sometimes, because I can lose myself in my business for like hours and not even look up. And so I have to be quite careful to remember to drink and stuff, because I just really love what I do. So I get very lost in it, which can be like quite crazy as a feeling. It's not a particularly cool type of business. I just do marketing for people, but it's just, I really love it and I get really lost, and I've got so much I want to do with it that like it's a real passion for me. And so I think like in your life, if you can find things that you're extremely interested in and kind of give your attention to those rather than us spending our time like thinking about our problems and our OCD, is like really, really get into something, have goals or systems outside of OCD and anxiety, things that you are really excited about, that spirit you, that push you along. Now, for me, I can share mine. Like, this might be really boring to everyone else, but I really, really like my business. So I watch a lot of YouTube videos about online content creation, about marketing, keeping up with all the trends, and I will then come up with ideas for my podcast and all these different things. And then I also, as a separate area, I love like running and watching videos about like runners and like things you can do in running, and motivational stories of runners and like what they've done and stuff. And then the third one is parenting. There's loads of really cool philosophies within parenting that I just love watching videos and taking notes and like coming up with ideas to design my home around my children, and like I just really get into it. So what I would say is, when you're feeling like you're in a bad place, like, self-care is to look at what's going on in your life that's leading you to be in a general negative place anyway. For example, I notice that if I just watch the news every morning, it's just not like lifting me. And I mean, we've all got to be aware of affairs in the world, and there's different ways to do that. But if you're just listening to like blaring like music that's just not necessarily feeding your soul, and you're watching negative news and you're talking to negative people and you're in circles, like you don't, you're in a job where people are always whining and bringing you down, I think like, see if you can be the person who like breaks the mold and goes, do you know what, I'm going to focus on things in life that are positive. I'm going to find positive networks and spaces of things that lift me up, like the things that maybe other people find boring or annoying about me. There'll be people in the world who find them super cool. Like, I don't know, as a kid I was often told, gosh, she's overbearing, she doesn't stop talking. But now the people I hang out with find that this is their favorite thing about me, because I'm in the right circles and we kind of feed off each other. So it's like, for me, self-care is finding out, what do I love doing, and committing to a life where I'm doing that, not just rolling with the motions of life. And because OCD is really tough to get through. And so if you can make it so that OCD is kind of the only difficulty, I don't mean that other life difficulties won't exist. I don't mean that at all. I mean that if it can, there's other things in life we can control to be more positive, and those can make a huge difference. So seriously getting into something like, and if you don't know what to get into, maybe try a few things out, like go to a circuit training session at a gym, go to a dance class. Like, it's unbelievable what you can find in your local area. Like, there's a place down the road, I didn't know, they've got this field and these women just dance every Friday to African drum music. I was like, that's amazing. So just finding cool things in your area that you're like, oh, I'd love to go to that. Like, the more you look, the more you find. I don't know, there might be a jewellery making lesson on a Wednesday evening at your local coffee shop that sounds rubbish, but you go there and you make an amazing friend that you never would have met. It's all these little things that lift you up. I have found art to be therapeutic. Like, when you're really low, doing something with your hands that's like you're making something can make a huge difference. And so that's self-care. And then lastly, the other little things is like just little things. Like, if you're struggling really loads, like even just washing your hair, getting a fresh pair of comfortable like house clothes on, and putting your favorite movie on and having your favorite chocolate bar. And if you're putting on these shoes every day that you can't stand because they don't fit you well and they're ugly, like see if you can find some new shoes. Like, even if it's, you know, for example, if money's an issue, like you can go on Facebook Marketplace, search your local area, and you'll find brand new shoes for like ridiculously low amounts of money. So it's like, it's not about having to spend money to be better, but just finding things that are going to give you those little lifts in life. Like Momin was saying the other day to me, it's like self-care can be things like getting yourself a new jumper, or eating your favorite chocolate bar, or reading like finding a coffee shop and just reading a book in a cozy chair on your own. Just anything that lifts you up. And so I hope that was useful. And again, any questions you have, please drop them in the comments and I will get to them. And thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you liked it. Have a good day. Bye.